Hey juniors, and welcome to this video that will walk you through the do's and don'ts of writing a Common App essay. And with that, let's get started. First off, much of this information came from the College Essay Guy and College Essay Advisors. Check those out if you want more information on writing good Common App essays. The first question we're going to answer is, what do they want? What are these admissions counselors looking for when they look at a Common Application essay? The College Essay Guy has broken this into three main things. The first, who are you? The second, will you contribute to our campus? The third, can you write? When I say who are you, I mean, what are you like? What are you passionate about? What you're trying to give an impression of what kind of student you are. And with that, you're also trying to show how you will be contributing to college life there, right? And then lastly, this is just a basic demonstration of studentship if you can put together a quality essay. So we have six tips here for what to do in your essay that will make it a successful one. And we're going to go through them one by one. The first one, though, is to have a narrative. So captivating essays tell a story, right? We are captivated by stories, not just by explanations. So one of the essays you should have read for your assignment yesterday told the story of how debate taught that student to find their voice and overcome their shyness, right? They didn't just state, I used to be shy, now I am not shy, right? It told the story of them overcoming that. That makes for a more interesting read. The next thing you're going to want to make sure you do is include details, right? Make this interesting. This is what college essay advisors say. What is the difference between these two sentences? My favorite activities included fishing and cooking my daily catch. So that's the first sentence. My favorite activities included fishing and cooking my daily catch. Now let's read the second one. My friends and I woke up early every morning to catch bass on Lake Michigan, cooking our spoils with herbs picked from a local farm. So we have that first sentence and we have that second sentence. Take a moment to think about what's the real difference between that first and second one? Well, in the first sentence, we understand that you enjoyed certain activities, right? You just said it. I enjoy fishing and cooking my catch. In the second one, we know we can tell you like fishing because you're waking up early to do it. And we also understand your commitment to the activity that you engaged in every day, and we recognize that your fishing trips are a social effort. So it shows more about you. It also is just more interesting to read the second one. And they're showing similar things. The second one is just better. Focus on something small. You won't be able to include your whole life story, so don't try. Pick one or two interesting things about you or things you've done and let those tell a larger story about what you're like. So again, that example we read, that student talked about debate. That other student talked about carnivorous plants, right? They're not talking about these large, decades-spanning things. They're focusing on something small. All right, this is going to seem confusing at first, but brand yourself. You want people to remember your essay. College counselors or admissions counselors are reading hundreds of thousands of these, and you need to stand out. So, as a good explanation here again from College Essay Advisors, when it comes down to you and another similarly qualified candidate, you want an admissions officer to be able to stand up with your application in his or her hand and say, I like the girl who performed trapeze in the circus, or how about the girl who played backgammon with her grandfather? It'll be much harder to remember the girl who practiced the trapeze and was also good at riding bikes and who got an A on every test and who generally worked very hard, or the girl who really loved her late grandfather and who feels like she embodies a lot of his core characteristics, right? You want people to be able to sum up your essay in a sentence or two. It needs to have a brand. That goes along with being, sticking to small things and not telling your life story, right? Okay, let's press on. Next, show how awesome you are. This essay should reflect why you'd be a good candidate for college. So for that reason, it should show one of the following things. You're passionate about learning. You're curious. You demonstrate growth. You're interesting. You're interested in the world around you. Those are the kinds of things these essays show. You are showing how awesome you are and why that makes you good for college. Okay, lastly, and this is a big one, be honest. Applying to college is as much about finding the right match as it is about getting in. If you lie about who you are in an application, you might not get matched with a school that's right for you. So be honest and be you. So we've talked about what to do. Now we're going to talk about what not to do in this college essay, which is just as important. First and foremost, don't just state cool things you've done. There needs to be a story around them. There needs to be more descriptions. You don't want to just list all the stuff you've done. Your college counselors already get this. I mean, your admissions counselors. You don't need to give it to them again in essay form. So don't draw tons of attention to weakness. If you want to talk about a time you struggled with something, then that should resolve at some point in your story. You shouldn't be like, I was not a very good student as a kid. Welp, I really like the trapeze, right? Because then that weakness is just going to dangle there and stick out. You want it to resolve, right? I used to not be a very good student. That was until I met my babysitter, Cloud, who worked with me. Then get into your story about how you improved. Don't just draw attention to a weakness and not explain it. Also, if you are doing a story about growth, you want to spend more time on who you are now than who you were then, right? You don't want to spend tons of time on the less grown you, the weak you, because that's not who's going to college. You want to focus on who you are now and why that growth is impressive. Don't spend a lot of time talking about elementary school. If you were nervous about a piano recital, but you overcame it and you did it, you were only 8. College counselors are not going to care about this. So do not write about that 8-year-old, that piano recital from when you were 8 years old. Pick things that happened when you were in high school. Now, that's not to say you can't reference things that have happened since you were a small child. That just should not be the focus of your essay. Okay, I call this mistake the big game or the I love my grandma essay. What these essays do is they spend the whole time describing the game, where you scored the winning goal, or they spend the whole time describing how awesome your grandma is. Now, that's great. I'm so glad you scored the winning goal. I'm so glad you love your grandma. I love my grandma too. But your grandma is not applying to college. You are. So by the end of reading this essay, the college admissions counselor might think, I want to admit your grandma. Grandma sounds awesome. That's not how you write. Grandma rocks. But what about you? I don't know anything about you. And this game rocks. I want to admit that game to college, but I don't necessarily want to admit you. This, I hope I've said it enough times. The whole point of this essay is to show who you are. This isn't a super common one, but just be careful not to say all the things you hope to get out of college and not make it clear what you would contribute to a college, right? Now, this might be nice to include, right? That you hope to learn more about botany or whatever it is you're passionate about. But you want to make it clear throughout your essay that you will also be contributing to this school. So these essays need structure. They should have paragraphs. It should be a narrative. It shouldn't just be like a random free write of things that come into your head and different interesting things about you. Again, we talked about earlier how it should be a narrative. And part of that means it can't just be your beautiful thoughts that are floating around in your head. Don't be cliche or too corny. Again, admissions counselors are reading hundreds of these. So if you say things that other people say a lot, you're not going to stand out. So saying something like going to Ecuador changed my life. That might be true, but it's not going to help you stand out. Think about writing in a way that's not going to be cliche or corny. Don't try to be something you're not. If when you write, you're not normally snarky or funny, this is not the time to experiment or try that out. Be you. Use a voice that is natural to you. And so just as a reminder, here are all those do's and don'ts in one place. You could pause this part of the video or look at this slide just to have them all on one screen. So now let's talk about ways to start. Okay. One thing you could do is start with something unique you've done or that you do, and then expand it out, right? Okay, well, one time I built a boat out of duct tape. What could that possibly show about me? So that's one way you could take. You could also think about traits you'd want to reflect in your essay, and then narrow it down to experiences. So for example, well, I know I'm a good leader, and that's something I want to show. Maybe I could talk about the time I led a hike of a bunch of middle schoolers as part of camp and what that was like. Another thing you could do is think about something you've overcome or a mistake you've learned from, and then make that sort of the basis of your essay. Well, maybe you used to be kind of nervous about traveling, but then you had an experience that really changed your whole mindset. And now you want to see the world and major in international studies. So these are three, I think, pretty solid ways for you to start brainstorming. But more than anything, you can do this. You're capable, you're competent, and you have someone to help you. So with that, go forth and write your essay. It is hard because writing about yourself, humble bragging about yourself is hard, but you'll do it and you'll be fine.